Yeah, we're right at the beginning.
Mike's still out of flow at home. Thanks, Nick, appreciate it. But, Mike's stuff's gonna flow right in, so. All right. Chad, you notice this? They all want to be on the opposite side of you. Sorry. Yeah, Mike's still there. Just no, she's gonna sit in. Just
Chief in charge of math here.
right.
Hey, John.
I put all your stuff down on your end.
Okay, thank you.
What do I get down there?
Huh?
What do I get down there? I think I moved. This is yours. Oh.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brighton Area Schools Board of Education meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, just after my roll call, please.
Mr. Conley?
Here.
Mr. Trombley?
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell? Here. Dr. Krebs? Here. Mr. Stahl?
Here.
Mr. Myers?
Here. All right, that moves us to the approval of the agenda. Do you have a motion? So moved. Moved by Dr. Krebs, support by Mr. Stahl. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 6-0. Moves us to the superintendent report, item A, ESSA 3, 11T report. Is that Mr. Ingleton or?
Sure. Mr. Ingleton, you ready?
Sure.
All right, take it away, bud.
So thanks. We just wanted to remind everybody, and we've talked about this over the last year, but we have some additional federal dollars coming in, federal and state dollars coming in. We did want to give a report on where we're at on stakeholder input on this and the fact that we're putting our plan together. We are looking for a little more input if anybody has any. So just a reminder of what these are. These are COVID dollars that are coming in. The ESSER 3 dollars that are coming next, those are federal dollars. And again, these are grants from the state and federal government, so they do come with strings. ESSER 3 is federal, and that was distributed on the Title I formula, which means Brighton doesn't get a large dollar amount there. Other districts will get a much larger allocation. The 11T dollars are federal dollars that have flowed through to the state, and those are now flowing through to us. But so the plan of use for these dollars does require that we develop the plans with stakeholder input. In order to do that, we did put out a survey to everybody in the area. I know we talked to you guys about that we're sending out a survey on that stuff. And we're also seeking some public input today. So that survey that we put out, the survey response data, we had about 125 people that actually filled out the survey. And the people that filled it out were students, families, some staff, and those that are representing the subgroups that we talked about before. The questions were based on information that was actually requested in the grant application. So we tried to tailor everything as to what was actually going to have to be put into the system. Those questions included how should the funds be used to implement, prevent, and mitigate strategies or mitigation strategies to open and operate safely. How should these funds be used to address learning loss through interventions, and what interventions are highest priority when you go to address the learning loss? 4 themes emerged from those responses. 1, mental health and mental health supports. And we've talked about those here at the board table a couple of times, and we're doing additional work to try to deal with that. 2 is academic enrichment. 3, preparing for future long-term closures and pandemics. and 4, improving ventilation. So for ESSER 3, current preliminary planning. Now remember that this is ESSER 3, it's federal dollars. It has to tie back to the pandemic. That's just the rules and how it's being set up. There are a lot of hoops to jump through for these, so we're doing our best to summarize it all and bring it all together. Now, there's also a prescribed restriction on ESSER 3. 20% must be spent on learning loss. So preliminary planning at this time, we're looking at counselors, social workers, and psychologists. We're looking at technology upgrades on mobile equipment for if we have to go for mobile learning. And we're also looking at some ventilation system upgrades. Now 11T, again, must tie back to the pandemic. Now this one was the one that we talked about, had a ton of hoops, a ton of restrictions. So the prescribed restrictions on this one, 51.4% for learning loss, 20.6% for summer and after school programming, which I know Liz is going to talk about more later, and 28% other eligible expenditures. But that is further restricted to directly impact economically disadvantaged students, students with disabilities, students of color, English language learners, homeless students, and those in foster care. So it's a very tight and limited population, which I know we've talked about multiple times here at this table. So at this time, preliminary planning on the 11T dollars, we are looking at English language tutors, K-12 instructional coaches, a multi-tier system of support revamp, along with the coordinator and needed supports. The monies that go towards the compensation of those teaching the most underserved, and summer school and after-school activities. And that kind of wraps up where we are on our stakeholder input. We are asking in public comment today if anybody has anything additional they'd like to throw out there as input. And again, we're doing this because we're actually required to put it out here. So I'm just throwing it out there for today. Question?
In the ESA 3, how much dollars are we talking?
839,000.
Okay. How about the 11T?
11T totals about $8.2 million.
One more time on that number?
8.2.
Million.
Yep. And
How long do we have to spend it?
we have this fiscal year and next fiscal year to spend it. So we will be looking to spread that over the next 2 years,
2 school years.
2 school years. And 2 school years in about a month, when it all breaks down. So, for that very limited specific population. So, and that's the struggle. I mean, and it really has been a struggle for us to come up with
Well, if we don't
ways to
spend it,
get
it
through
goes
that.
back, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So we're not necessarily hurt if we don't get it all, but we are trying our best to come up with a plan to make it work.
Is there any other questions? One question I have is, so if it's to be spent over a 2-year period, and let's say we spend half of that in the current fiscal year, is there an audit process to say whether what we are claiming was appropriately spent under those programs qualifies, and therefore we know we have X amount of dollars left? Or conversely, if they say, well, you've submitted this, we're only approving 2 million instead of 4 million, now we, for planning purposes, we've got 6 million that we may want to try to utilize in year 2. Is there any sort of a process?
So there's multiple layers of process for that. And actually we have to, once we get our stakeholder input and develop our plan, we have to submit that plan to begin with. So we have to clear it through one guy at the state for both of these plans. We have to get them through him. And he's doing it for every school district in the state. So he's the gatekeeper, right? So he determines whether or not what you've submitted actually lines up with what the actual law indicates that it should, and all of the regulations that come with it. Beyond that, to your point, we're spending only what's approved in that initial plan. Everything we do has to tie back to that. You will have, our annual audit that comes through, and auditors do their compliance testing on, various transactions. Obviously, they don't test them all, but they will sample test transactions and make sure that there's compliance with what that plan is. In addition to that, then there's the back end, there's the carrot, and then the stick on the back end is you always run the risk of the state coming in to audit those dollars themselves, and then you can face the chance that they take those dollars back if they weren't spent appropriately. So there's multiple layers, and there's more to it than just those pieces, but that's the compliance end of it at this point.
But at least up front, there's going to be some sort of review and preliminary clearance or approval by the
Correct.
state to say, yeah, what you're proposing and the funds that you're looking to allocate for these various programs,
Yeah.
that meets the criteria.
Yes.
So long as then during that year, those funds are used for that purpose, you ought to have some sort of a safe harbor. Knowing
Yes,
that
and-
you're not going to get the rug pulled out from under your hand.
And he's been on the speaking tour for the last 6 to 9 months, talking about what's going to fly and what's not, and things that have been submitted that didn't fly, like districts that submitted for a new turf field. It just didn't make them, didn't cut it. That, and they've tried to put things through for building additions and some of that stuff was approved, but it has to be in a certain prescribed manner that makes it allowable under the law. So there is a gatekeeper up front. Once we clear that hurdle, I think we'll feel pretty comfortable. But most of what we're looking at, I don't foresee that we're going to have any issues. John,
How soon can we start spending it?
as soon as we have application in and approved, which can be, because it's one man, he can turn it around pretty quickly, actually. So we're eligible now. We just have to get things approved.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can you send me an email with that list again? I wrote down what I could.
You can throw a list in there, yeah.
All right.
We'll take your input just as anyone else.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Ingleton.
You're welcome.
All right, next item under superintendent report is B summer school update. Ms. Mosher?
I have Miss Hubert with me as well. She's been helping coordinate a lot of our summer school options. And just a little bit of background. So if you remember, last year was our first year launching new summer programs. We actually maybe took a hiatus for a while. We started with a Kickstart opportunity. So this year we've been trying to increase more and more options. A few things that we've offered for all students in regards to our summer school is first and foremost for our Kids Read Now. All kindergarten students received part of our Kids Read Now, 9 books over the summer. In that, they got learning programs, things to do with families and their parents. So that was an option and actually offered and free to all of our students who are kindergarten. We used to offer it kind of restricted based on data originally to other students, but we felt offering it to our kindergarten students, getting books in hands and kind of building that family engagement around literacy would be a better opportunity. So that was one of our all learners for our students. You want to talk about Michigan Learning Channel?
Sure.
Another option?
Michigan Learning Channel is a part of PBS to provide programming for the summer for students in grades then 1 through 6. And parents could sign up for that, and they get weekly bulletins because there's themes every week. It has reading programming, math programming, and then science and STEAM programming, as well as social, like wellness activities. So, parents have a choice to do activities online. Like there's about probably an hour programming a week per grade level if you want to watch it, but there's also offline activities for families to do as well. So they could be engaged in other things. And families could actually ask us for a booklet. We'd print that for them, or they can just print the booklet at home or just work from their computer. So we had about 50 families reach out to ask for a booklet, but it's a nice option for students in our district and across the state.
And then at the high school, they offered, we call it Ed Ready Math and ELA. So that's a virtual option through Michigan Virtual. Again, that was put out through our high school, and Lynette Dagg works with a lot of that. And that's where students actually kind of take a pre-assessment to see what skills they need, and then they reinforce some other skills. So it's kind of helping with some learning loss or enhancing some skills that they need. That option was available for all of our students as well. So those were some of our all-student kind of options, and obviously we have summer school that runs for credit recovery or new credit for the high school as well. So this year, kind of our invite-only group, we went back and we offered our Kickstart, which is, today was our first day for that. Just a reminder, I did give you this sheet so you kind of look at it with us. That's a 2-week program. It's 8 days. We specifically targeted a new group of students this year. Originally, with it being our only program, we kind of looked for students at a certain percentile and lower. This time we took a little bit higher percentile, but we looked at the 30th percentile, we call it on the NWA, and more our bubble students who are just looking to kind of get launched into the school year. So we don't consider this an intensive intervention. It's more of literally a kickstart to get into reading and math and STEAM activities. So we had, if you remember last year, 100% of our parents and 100% of our staff absolutely enjoyed it. And so we brought it back and just kind of targeted a different group to see if we could expand that. And we expanded it with about 50 more students. So we're at 150 students who are participating in this year. I did put on that sheet, just so you kind of have an idea, we invited 670 students, and of that, 150 took us up on it. So just to kind of give you an idea, like how many invites are we putting out, and then how many people are kind of using these options as we build them.
So what did you have last year?
We had 120, like
About 100.
about 100 total students who attended last year. I don't know the exact number we sent out. Sorry.
Last year, I think we invited probably around 500-ish. It's like,
And on the invites, how do the invites go out? Who determined who got invited?
So we use there's a criteria data here. So like here it was K2 students between the 15th and 30th percentile on a DIBELS test and our ELA test. And then we also look at our math. And then we looked at NWA, the 11th to 40th percentile. So we didn't, again, go on the bottom because we have an intensive intervention this year for that. We kind of picked the bubble, students who might need a little boost.
Did we charge for those classes?
So we do, we charge a registration to hold a spot, but we also, for families who need it or didn't, pay, we have assistance for them. So they don't have to pay if there's a financial need.
it's right in the application process. They can choose how to pay, or if they have hardship this year, then we just take it that way. So they just choose right in their application which they want to do.
So how much did that class cost?
Cost us, or how much were they?
How
$40.
much was the registration?
$40. Yeah, $40. And that's just for planning purposes, for staffing, right? So we know how many staff to, for that. And I would say this year, do you know how many staff we have this year? We keep about a 1-to-5 ratio, just so you have an idea too. So it's a very intensive group with students as well. So that way.
About 30
we
staff
can help-
members.
Yeah. So we increase that number as well.
So technically though, this would fall right in line with one of those programs that would be funded, right?
Yes.
Yeah, in fact, it's one of the prescribed restrictions on elective T. We have to offer a certain amount. just for-
So technically we could send them all a rebate and turn that in as expense. Just a thought.
Well, we can't, we gotta wait until the application is approved, so this
Gotcha.
summer's kind of out, but we're
I'm
looking
thinking
at the
out loud. I'm
next-
just
No,
trying
it's
to
a-
for future.
Yep.
next 2 summers are.
Oh, and we can advertise that this is a funded program, and then, again, ideally, we could go from 150 to 300.
Yeah.
That's why we invited 6, like our
I
goal
like it.
was to
No,
get
I'm
more
glad- yeah,
kids,
I
like
see
come
that.
on and join us. So, yep.
We
Yeah, I see
really,
that. That's good.
we've had serious discussions about the registration fee. Some of that is just skin in the game.
Okay,
We really feel that they do actually
do better.
show up
Yes.
more when
Yep.
there is some skin.
I don't disagree.
So it's not a moneymaker by any means, but
Oh,
it's more of a motivator.
Reservation fee also includes at-home resources. So each of our kids are going home with a few books to take home,
Excellent.
as well as other materials, like our middle schoolers are gonna get some so those kind of things go home with them as well. They get a new little backpack.
So that's the Kickstart. And then we have 2 other programs that we started this year for literacy specific. And these were more intensive. So this was specifically targeting students who we recognize may need a need to further their skills in something in literacy. So we have the literacy lab, which was specifically for rising 2nd and rising 3rd grade. So, which is current which was last year's first and second grade. So we started small with 2 groups as we try to build this. So this was new. It's a 2-hour session. It was 12 total meeting time. So it was over 4 weeks.
Yep.
4 weeks, Tuesday through Thursday, and parents could pick either AM or PM. So we kind of gave them the option of when they wanted to come in. Again, we specifically use Dibble's criteria. So when we give the test, students are kind of based on areas of concern. We call them red or yellow based on a need. If they had a red or yellow in one of the areas of the test, then they were invited to be part of this. So you can see we invited 290 second and third graders, and we had 79 come and 74 actually attended. So that kind of gives you an idea. It's about 26-ish% that actually come to that. So again, what was unique about this, and I really do want to give a shout out, I don't know if they're actually watching this, but I need to give this to the teachers and coaches. So what's really unique about here is that Brighton created a program that took specific reading needs and then intertwined them with STEAM activities. So they weren't in their own entity. It's not like I learned some reading skills and then I go do a STEAM thing. Everything was intertwined and really intentionally planned out. So students could take what they were reading and actually apply it right there with their project. So that was the planning, really. Joan Ancona, Chelsea Boyd, Cody Alexander, a lot of our coaches and teachers built all that. And then there was actually at-home activities that they took with it. Again, books in hands of kids, so they left with books as well. So again, that was a 1-4, 1-5 ratio with a teacher working with a small group of students. Intense, specific intervention needs for those students, just to kind of give you an idea on that. Anything you want to add to that?
They built drums, they examined pill bugs, they designed pill bug bots, or pill bots as they're called. It's just always wonderful to see what's going on there, and they all enjoyed it very much and got a lot of it.
You want to talk about this one?
Sure, the last one was our virtual reading tutoring. We want to try another thing this year as well, so to kind of amp up the scale of what we can support students with. So a virtual reading tutoring program was offered through Latera, which is just a company, and it is aligned with our reading and writing curriculum resources here. So we know that it aligned, and we invited students to do a virtual reading tutoring sessions all summer. 18 sessions, but it was a live tutor one-on-one. So it wasn't that they logged in and just listened to something. So they had a personalized tutor that met with them. We did a pre-test to see where they started. They started in some foundational reading levels. They did fiction or nonfiction reading, and they would meet 18 times over the summer. We had 400 sessions so far this summer, and then 115 left to go. We have a few kids who overlap at Kickstart and virtual tutoring, so they're going to do both this week. We have really great feedback from the parents and from the kids so far. We had about how many kids? 36 kind of panned out, and we're able to do it all summer. And we're going to look at that again for next summer, we hope.
So this one I found kind of most interesting, right? Because this is on your own time, anytime. So if you wanted your tutor at 5 p.m., you could have your tutor at 5 p.m. You wanted them at 8 a.m., you could have it at 8 a.m. And so we put this out to 278 families in 36. So I'm hoping that it grows. You know, this is our first time trying it. But what's nice is it is one-on-one. It's specific around a student need. It's not a group. It's not 3 or 4 and we're all going to learn the same lesson. It's personalized. This is where you're at and let me work on the skills you need and go for it. So this is something that we're talking about continuing into the actual school year and providing that service beyond just summer. So talking about those dollars, that's one of the things we're talking about doing and expanding it. So yeah, so we've talked about, I've talked with somebody at Friendship Center and then also how we can expand it into more families. I will tell you with this program, we did try it out with some students who are a little bit higher level just to see if it would work for them. So far, the feedback is maybe not so much. So it really is about an intervention and kind of that intense piece that students are looking for to fill gaps. But this is just, again, another example of this year, kind of 2 new programs that we've built or found to start supporting our students.
Now,
Next
do you-
year, it goes
Do you go out with any type of survey after it?
Yeah.
We do.
And you've gotten responses back?
So Lit Lab just ended on Thursday. So we're just finishing doctoring up that survey now, but that's how we knew Kickstart last year. So Kickstart this year went a half hour longer at a
So you get
request.
some pros and cons?
Yeah, so we kind of tweak it based on those pieces.
Will you get any, or have you asked for any, anyone to be able to put something in writing that you can use for future to say, yeah, it was worth my student sitting there and that kind of thing, so people can maybe actually see that,
Like a quote to share or something.
Oh, that's a
yes,
good idea.
yes,
Great idea.
yes, that it did work for the program, right?
Yeah,
And they were
absolutely.
happy with it and they would recommend it and do it again?
Yeah, that's a great, I mean,
Okay.
literally, that's why we tweaked some of the stuff in Kickstart. We made it a half hour longer at the request of both parents and that.
Okay,
And another request is transportation. So we're looking at how we can try to use these funds to help with transportation, because people were saying even the half day is sometimes hard. If we could transport them and work with Friendship Center or something like that. So we're trying to find ways to make it more convenient for families, as we grow, but
and,
here too,
and
it's
this will
going
be
well.
hopefully each summer going forward?
Yep, so as long as we can, I mean, we have funds right now, and then the goal is to build it strong enough, so.
You'll have fun for you.
Well, the goal is to build it strong enough too that we can carry it on, right? So, and really in the intervention part, right, if we keep building our program strong enough, it might look a little different on how we're intervening, right? So if we have tutoring throughout the school year, maybe I don't have as many needing to come in for an intervention in the summer. I won't know until we go forward, but I think that's always how we're looking at it. How can we strengthen what we have to kind of limit some of those other things, or lessen the number who we might invite because they don't need it.
It was good that I was at Stratton. It was good to see the kids there.
It's wonderful.
It was really a great thing to see them there using the facilities.
It's great.
Getting what they needed, and that's, those buildings sit there and they're supposed to be used and people were there teaching them. It was great.
Well, what's fun with the littles is they all see the school that they're gonna go to one day. And they get very excited about being in like Maltby and Scranton. They're like, this is great, so it is, it's,
They were super excited when the carpet was up and.
Yeah, I saw
they did.
Their feet didn't
That was
stick to
not
the floor
such a
as
good
they walked in.
They were sad when it went down because they would try to stick their feet to
They were
the
sticking-
tacky
I saw it.
floor,
They were
yeah.
sticking to the floor.
Tried to. They were sad when the carpet came in, but it's beautiful now. We are enjoying it.
So those are some of, I think those are our bigger updates for our summer programming so far.
Good news.
Do you guys do anything with gymnasium time for kids in summer?
Hmm.
I've watched it happen in the district I'm working in, and we get an awful lot of kids that come because they'd otherwise be sitting at home waiting for their mom and dad to come home or something. So they can all get everything organized, programs, basketball, soccer, volleyball, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I know sports camps and obviously you've got your whole Friendship Center program. This building has been filled with activity all summer. And that's obviously you have your younger students, but all the way up through. And so they're doing a lot of that kind of thing.
One follow-up question I have is, I know that there was some discussion about having a testimonial from parents or families that have participated in the program, which I do think is a great idea. Is there any plan to track the statistical success? So you can say, on average, the students that participated in this program, their year-to-year NWEA scores went up, 20%, or, because that in and of itself would be, a very powerful testimonial, beyond just, comments from families. So that would be, and frankly, I would be interested. Realize you got to start.
We are
We are too. Yeah.
And then it'll take a couple of years to track that progress, but definitely that would be something that I think would be important for us
For
to
our
be able to track.
interventions, yes. So for our interventions, like the literacy lab and the virtual reading, so we actually pre-tested before they went into this program. So we have like literally their most recent test. I mean, they were testing them right before they left school to kind of really get an idea where they're at. And then they'll be tested, within the first 4 weeks of school because we have to do that by law. But so yes, we do want to see that for our interventions. As I say with the Kickstart camp, it's really not about a academic thing about that. It's more about preparedness for school for a lot of these students just getting back in the habit. So I wouldn't say that we're going to see a change in their scores per se, but what we do see sometimes is just a change in readiness. And so also some of our teachers actually, this happened last year, because they met them there, they actually said, put them in my classroom. I've already got a relationship with some of these students and they were ready to go a lot faster. So there's kind of that anecdotal for our Kickstart, which again, I don't consider that an intense intervention. We're picking up foundational skills that we've seen from data that some students overall have lost. But yes, to the intervention, the specific interventions, which would be our virtual tutoring and lit lab.
Also a big confidence booster for both those programs. So we've heard a lot of feedback from parents and students about how they feel better ready to come to school and they're feeling more confident in their skills.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate the update. All right, that moves us to item C, security update. Dr. Outlaw.
Sure. I'm going to be very brief on this. Just want to let you know that our planning continues on this. We've been working with our company, Premier Security. The hiring process has been going well. We have had our attorney review the contract, and we've submitted some recommendations for language changes based on our attorney's recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Scaling and Mr. Angleton for their help with that. So that's going really well. Our operations team and Mr. Castillo from technology have been working on location and technology needs for the stations at the different elementary schools. That's been going very well. Equipment's been ordered. Thank you to Ms. Zackermite for that. And just want to let you know that things are going really well with their planning. Our Officer Bell is here tonight, one of our 2 police liaisons, and I know that they're doing work on their end. They were all part of a statewide conference where they had a lot of feedback, and they're going to be meeting with our principals on the 17th, and we're going to be doing a real focus on security at that meeting. We've had a number of other sessions, another number of other meetings on this topic, but this is going to be another major priority for us as the year begins. So planning is going well. We'll update more as we get closer to the beginning of the year.
One thing, and Officer Bell may be able to confirm this if I'm speaking out of line, but I understand the city is going to cut the funding for Danko, the police dog, coming up. And my question is, if the funding is cut, and I don't believe it's considerably a lot of money. I think it's somewhere around $5,000 a year, but they're not, apparently from what I understand, they're not going to approve that amount of money. I know Brighton has the pack of dogs that are assets of Brighton area schools. And my question is, if the city gets rid of Danko or no longer keeps Danko, what do we do for inspections of lockers, things like that, when we decide to call in, or before we could just call and the city would bring Danko in? Now without that dog, without searching lockers or going through the hallways with dogs, how's that gonna work without that dog? And is this something that us as a school district should possibly look at in funding the dog through the pack of dogs in order to keep that dog for one of these reasons?
I mean, I can tell you there are plenty of dogs in the area, and it's not just in the city. I mean, I know there's a lot of dogs county.
Yeah, I know.
wise,
We own one ourselves, so there are a lot of dogs.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about police dogs.
Oh,
And I
okay,
know
sorry.
'cause they're here off many times during the year downstairs actually doing some of their training work. And when I worked in another district, obviously the city there didn't have their own dog. So dogs are brought in. If there's a bomb situation, those are specific dogs. Those are brought in from all over the place. And then drug dogs, same thing. There's multiple dogs out there. It's not reliant on just the city.
Yeah, but that still doesn't answer the question. How's it going to impact us?
So again, I would, when you do a sweep, like what we're talking about, it's not one dog, it's multiple dogs.
Well, it depends on
typically.
what you're sweeping, right? If you're going to do the whole school, obviously have multiple dogs because dogs get bored after 15 minutes of searching lockers, right?
So we'll check on that. Obviously with this is new information for us and it's outside of our, jurisdiction, as a school district, but I can call over, Officer Bell can check in on that and we'll get that information back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions regarding the security update? All right, that closes the superintendent report portion of our agenda and moves us to the call to the public. This is the opportunity for anyone who is here this evening that would like to address the board, the opportunity to do so. We have cards at the table at the rear of the room that can be filled out. I will call your name and you can come to the podium and address the board, and I will also identify the individual who will be next to help move things along. As I indicated, you have 3 minutes to address the board. When you are in a 30-second time frame left for your allotted time, Dr. Krebs will give you a yellow card indicating that you have 30 seconds left. And then when your 3 minutes is up, she will give you or show you the right card. So the first person we have is Jason Ringette. And Sarah Cross will be next.
Because rebellion, the Bible says, 2 Corinthians 3, their minds were blinded. 2 Corinthians 4 says, the God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers. There's a veil. There's a blindness over the minds of the leaders and the politicians. The Bible teaches Jesus Christ. He said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Outside of Christ, there's no ultimate truth. DEI needs to be eliminated. It violates Article 1, Section 26 of the Michigan Constitution. It's unconstitutional in our schools to have discrimination, to give preferential treatment over one race or the other race. It's called reverse discrimination. So the school board members who wore masks during the school board meetings and were pro-mask and bright school kids in 2022 school year, wear your mask now. What, did COVID magically disappear? Oh, look, midterms are coming up and now they're pushing monkeypox. I hope this time people use science, logic, common sense to keep our kids in school this year for 2022 and 2023. How much further has Livingston County Schools kids fallen behind this year in education due to the reckless, illegal, healthy quarantines and mask mandates that the health department and school superintendents imposed on our children? With no peer-reviewed, replicated studies to back up the reckless actions to show that masks and healthy quarantines work. The health department pushed their recommendations, mandates, guidelines onto schools. Some superintendents and some school board members were all hell-bent on masking and healthy quarantines on our kids, violating our children's U.S. constitutional rights, civil rights, due process to a public education, violating their rights under the First, Fourth, Fifth, Ninth, and 14th Amendments, the guarantee clause in the federal statutes and regulations breaking state and federal laws. In April of 2021, the state emergency mandate stopped in Michigan, forcing our children to wear masks and healthy quarantines that have caused suffering, depression, isolation, physical, psychological, sociological harm to our children, imposed pain, suffering, and humiliation on our students, inhibited their speech, and damaged their health. Those who imposed face masks on our kids in the 21-22 school year on the kids need to apologize and resign from the school board. There are currently 167 studies mixed with peer-reviewed replicated studies that masks do not work, nor do they stop COVID transmission. A new observational study of the Forgan effect mechanism by which that face mask contributes to COVID-19 fatality rate was published in Medicine in February 2022 by Dr. Forgan. The paper analyzed wearing the face mask has caused more than 50% of deaths, 50% higher deaths, forcing people to wear masks compared to no mask mandates at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Sarah Cross, next after Ms. Cross will be Nicole Colors.
Thank you. Thank you.
On May 24th, 19 students and 2 teachers were brutally murdered, and 17 others were wounded at Robb Elementary School, where it was claimed that the killer entered through a door left propped open by a teacher. As a parent, I cannot imagine losing my child in such a barbaric way. That's why I was so shocked to learn that on June 30th, only weeks after the murder of those innocent children, John Connolly filed a police report alleging that I conspired with a teacher at Scranton for her to prop open an exterior door at Scranton so I could sneak into the school during the school day to illegally collect recall signatures. John Connolly contacted Deputy Schuster and claimed that at the June 13th board meeting, a Scranton teacher told him that she witnessed this conspiracy to endanger the lives and safety of our children. John claimed that this incident occurred sometime between May 1st and May 15th. The alleged witness has given a statement to the police that that was a lie and it never happened. Likewise, the teacher whom he accused of propping open the door has also given a statement that it never happened. I would not risk my career or my personal morals for Mr. Connolly. I'm 44 and I haven't even had a speeding ticket. I certainly haven't conspired with a teacher to recklessly endanger the lives and safety of the staff and children of our district. John Connolly knowingly filed this false report if he believed it was true. As a school board member, he had a duty of care to this district and to our children to immediately report it, not to wait over 2 weeks. He didn't. That's because it didn't happen, and he knows it didn't happen. It's a blatant act of voter intimidation and misfeasance in office. John Connolly learned nothing from his misappropriation of the Holocaust. Now he's taken the tragic death of innocent children and used it to retaliate against our staff and community in an attempt to undermine the recall drive. The recall drive is a political campaign. People have the right to sign these petitions, thousands of parents' signatures, absent of fear. Mr. Connolly lost to me in court, and he can't get me fired from my job. So his next best intimidation tactic is to file false police charges against me, to defame my character and to attempt to send a message to our staff and to this district about the recall drive. I ask you, members of this board, when will this be enough? When will Mr. Connolly be held accountable for his ethical violations, retaliation, and blatant harassment of our staff and community members? Thank you.
Thank you. After Ms. Cullors will be Lindsay Wing.
Good evening. You two ladies, I think you knocked it out of the park this summer with all the literacy interventions going on. It's so exciting to hear about all of them. My daughter is a incoming first grader and was part of the Kids Read Now program. She was so excited to get books every week. This amazing program. So thank you for doing that. Second, my former district had a program called Reading Co-Teachers. And what they did was, it was 2 teachers per building, which is about the size of our elementaries. And instead of a pull-out program, which is what most of the intervention programs are right now, this was a push-in program where the co-teachers would come into a classroom for 45 minutes to an hour and co-teach literacy. So there was a specific block every day that these co-teachers would go in and work with the teacher on that. They would plan together. They would do all the literacy together. But it was a push-in program. So it made a big impact on the kids. It's just an idea if you're looking for more ways to use the funds. And Mr. Stahl, I love your idea of sports over the summer. Intramural programs are awesome. I don't know if there's a way we could get that to work, but I love that idea. So thank you.
Thank you. After Ms. Wing will be Anna Pennell.
Good evening. My name is Lindsay Wing. I just have a couple of follow-up questions about the survey and the themes. So I heard mental health resources, academic enrichment, planning for future pandemics, and ventilation. Did I get those right? Okay. So for the mental health resources, can you provide any more information about what you're thinking there, or kind of more details about what would go into that category?
We've been really working on enhancing those areas right now. We've added additional staff, and that's kind of where we're going at this point. We're still in the planning process for that, but maybe that's additional ideas.
Yeah,
Great.
staffing is a big piece of it. It's part of our strategic plan. It's one of our pieces in our third major category within it. And we're really focusing on proactive efforts. We've done a lot of the reactive, how do you deal with trauma and things like that. But what we're really focusing on is a lot of proactive things to help students have the right mindset, the right environment for them to be able to flourish. So those are some of the overarching goals that we have.
Okay, Great, thank you. And then my other question was about, or I guess suggestion, was about the summer school things. And I'm wondering what considerations were made for working parents. I know sounds like some with what was happening within Friendship, but again, additionally with the kind of the weaving it in with the sports, I think making accommodations for those parents that, have more than one parent out of the house during the day working or in the house working would be really helpful for kids that need that support. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess talking about the funding, the 839,000 and the 8.2 million. I know this is like probably not a high priority, but it would be really nice if our gym was air conditioned. I don't know if that can be part of the ventilation process or if we could weave that in somehow, but that is one hot gym in August for these kids. And I know that's not like a real problem, but for a district like ours, it seems like that's something that we could do. I don't know if for sure if the weight room is, but those kids work real hard in there all summer long and it is hot. So
I will respond that I did try to look into air conditioning as a mitigation strategy. And I did have a study, I was hoping that like, certain humidity levels were actually good for spreading viruses, but unfortunately, the areas, the powers that be in the frequently asked questions.
already, darn it.
But I was thinking along the same line.
I was hopeful. 8.2 million, we could have worked that in there.
No,
That was just my idea. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Stringleton, there's no more cards. There's no one else has submitted.
Provide all of them.
Okay. All right, and that closes our call to the public for the evening and moves us into for action. Item A, regular minutes of July 11, 2022. We have a motion. Moved by Mr. Stahl. Support by Ms. Mitchell. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 6-0. All right, that moves us to item B, Human Resources Report. Mr. Scaling.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Human Resources provided for your review. We have 7 teachers on the report for this evening. We ask that you approve the Human Resources Report as presented.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the Human Resource Report as presented? So moved. Moved by Mr. Stahl, supported by Dr. Krebs. Any discussion?
Were there any board members at the teacher interviews?
They were not. Same process that we've used throughout the entire time, beginning back in April and
Will
May.
that process ever change?
I met with Mr. Connolly this week, and Dr. Outlaw and I'll sit down and share that conversation, and then the plan is to make a determination on how to move forward in addressing that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Conley.
In the interview process, did any men apply for these jobs?
I do not believe on this specific ones, no.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Dr. Krebs.
Does this, is this all of our positions at this point? Is there any that we have open that we're kind of?
Yes, we've got a couple we'll probably bring before in the next couple of weeks before school starts. We have about 4 more that are either in process of being filled or completed to be filled that just weren't made it on time for this report.
So you have candidates lined up for that?
Yes, we do. We're just in the process of finishing that process and getting them ready to bring before the board.
All the other, so everything's filled, you think, at this point?
We have 1 special ed position that we're still working on, but the other 3 for sure. We have a plan for this particular one. It just wasn't ready to bring forth today.
Thank you.
Yep. We should not start the year without any teachers in place. No.
Thank you.
So is the motion to approve
Human Resource Report.
the new hires?
Yeah, that's what's in the Human Resource Report, are all the proposed hires. Okay. All right, all those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays?
Nay.
That passes 4-2. That closes for action and brings us to the for future action portion of our agenda. Item A, Superintendent Evaluation Schedule. Dr. Outlaw.
Sure. We are, the board completed my evaluation in the spring. And there's an option of, I need to know for planning purposes what the board's preference would be. We can continue with an annual evaluation, which would be every spring. This would be my 9th year as a superintendent, and I've been highly effective every year. So the board, if you wished, you could shift to a biannual evaluation, and it's a choice, whichever one you would prefer. I'm just looking for direction for the board on which pathway you'd like to go. So.
Just to bring it back, I remember in one of our correspondence, it discussed that if we went to, I think it was every other year, that would be better for election cycles. Is that correct? And I understand that.
Sure.
People that come in and
Yeah.
haven't even gotten to know you yet, and they're-
Right. Yeah, so if we, just hypothetically, we have an election this fall, and we're going to have at least one new member of the Board of Education, and that person would be part of an evaluation of somebody that they would have worked with for a couple of months at most. So there's a disadvantage to that. The other big advantage to this, it allows us to get on a cycle where we can do the evaluations in the fall, which I think are best for our student data. The reason for that is the student data that we're sitting on right now, that's all embargoed right now, would be part of that evaluation process. It would be fresh information about SAT and all of those type of things. The way the cycle has worked here, we're doing spring, so that data is a little bit stale by the time we get to the spring of the following year. So we end up focusing heavily on NWA data. Again, it can all work. It's fine, whichever you would prefer, but the biannual does have those advantages.
Is there a requirement that allows for skipping years? I thought that their district had, or the school board had to give 2 highly effective evaluations to allow us to skip.
Yeah, you'd have to have multiple years. I've had them for, this is 8 years in a row that I've had, so not by the statute, it does not have to be in Brighton.
Have we done this in the past? Are you aware of?
We did something with Greg where, for the, because again, it was an election thing. We discussed it.
I remember that, Ken, but I don't remember laying out a schedule of times for evaluation.
Well, we initially, when I first got on the board, there was a spring evaluation.
Correct.
And then pursuant to the statute, we because you had this highly effective rating, we skipped.
Right.
What we decided as a board then was to move the evaluation to the fall or early winter for the reason that Dr. Outlaw mentioned. If it falls in an election cycle, then you do it in the spring, however many new board members you have. So we did that.
Right.
I think it was the fall of 2018. We had his last evaluation. He would have been up for an evaluation in 2020, but of course he retired.
Right.
What set us back on the cycle, did you guys participate?
I think we did one.
Okay, so maybe it was the fall of 2019 that we did that.
No, I did one.
We got it into the cycle where it was in the fall.
18 would have been the election, 19 would have been.
Right, so then it was the fall of 19, you guys had the benefit of the year of, working with him. And then, of course, he retired, COVID hit, so, we didn't have a baseline. I think it is a good idea to get us back on the fall track, like a track, whether it falls in an election year or doesn't. If the evaluation is in the fall, every board member is gonna have at least, a 9-10 month, time frame. My own personal opinion is, I think we should schedule his next evaluation for next fall. So it would be basically like we just did it in the spring, so it'd be about an 18-month window of when the evaluation would take place, and then whatever board member, new board members on, that's up here will have the ability to participate meaningfully.
And when is our audit?
The financial audit?
Financial audit? Financial audit's always going to be in October, November.
Okay, so that would.
So we could do it in, November,
Sure.
December.
Yeah, that would hold, okay. Right.
Do we have other big tasks typically in October, November, December? kind of think of?
Just being honest, I've always been on that fall cycle because the spring is so busy for the board because you're in budget season, staffing season. I think the fall, especially like November, December, is a really good time to do this. I think it's a good way to end a calendar year.
So is the consensus of the board to, we want to shoot target for the fall of 2023 as the next evaluation? Okay.
Okay,
All right, that'll
thank
be
you.
the plan.
No, I appreciate it.
And this isn't something we need to bring forward for action. I mean,
No,
you got consensus.
I just needed it to schedule, so thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next item B is policy transition. Mr. Scaling or Dr. Elmore, do you want to briefly?
Yeah,
address that?
just, I had shared just an outline of this, for the public. I know the board has made this decision. We're going to be transitioning to a new policy company through the Troon Law. The board is going to be doing some work. Administration has done heavy work led by Mr. Scaling for quite some time. And we're ready for the board to do that review. On August 18th would be the first policy meeting. It's posted on the site, and that'll be recorded for anybody that wishes to watch. There is a 19-page document that the board would start with on that, where you have to make some preferences. It's things like, hypothetically, it's discipline procedures. Do you want to have a 3-person panel, or do you want to have a full board? It's some of those preferences that you all need to kind of give direction on. So it's a 19-page document. And then once you kind of give those preferences, there's a review of those policies. And what has been proposed is 1, 2s, and 5s. I don't know what exactly those categories are off my head first, and then coming back and doing the 3s and 4s, looking at that, and then doing approvals and taking whatever time it needs to do that. So it would be the 18th, the 24th, and then I have another placeholder for the 29th. All of those, 2 of those are for sure policy. The 29th, I would assume that we would need that as well, but we may need to hire teachers as well. That might be another piece that needs to be addressed at that time. So.
Will we need to have a Troon representative there to help us with some of this, or?
I believe the beginning of it, I think Mr. Scaling has done a ton of legwork on this. The questions in that 19-page piece, it is, having done it, because there's things that I had to answer, from the superintendent position. It's like a simple question. Do you want this or that? And it's what your preference is. Both of them are they're both suggested, but it's what your preferences might be. So I don't know that you need the representative for that portion of it. But if we did need the representative, obviously we could bring somebody in if needed.
Yeah, it's the policies, some of those policies that are there, just have simple language options, option A or option B. And so I've gone through and reviewed, cross-reference those to our current policies or current practices. And so you can see which option's there, and then just made a recommendation for which one best fits either our practices or our current policies. And then that's kind of what that 19-page document outlines, is those specific policies that have options that we would need to pick from prior to adoption.
So will we, at those meetings then, so let's say there's an A and a B choice.
Mhm.
Some pick A, some pick B. So again, is it the majority of the board that picks is the way it's going to go? Or can we get these things sent to us early? We can have a chance to review it. We can make our own decisions, come back with our questions answered, maybe the ones we can't answer or we want more direction on, we can ask at that time. But are we going to sit there, read through the questions, debate it, and then sit there and vote on it?
So that's been shared, so you all have access to it. That was so if you have that, so feel free to review that, ask any questions that you have ahead of time on that. I think that the idea would be, because the vote comes later when you're approving policies, I think you're probably as a whole, that's what you're going to be approving policies later on. That would be your official approval. So I would anticipate that this would probably be more of a consensus. And then I think if it was, a 4-3 type thing, maybe that's one where you table it and have some more conversation on that. But some of these are going to be pretty cut and dry. Most of these are going to be pretty cut and
That's why
dry.
I'm asking the question,
Yeah.
because if we respond and the majority of them are a yes or a no, then why would we even bother to debate it and bring it up and waste time on it?
So, typically with a policy approval, like whether it's Neol or anything, there's a first reading where you have a chance to get comfortable with it. You can ask questions. Some of them you might be ready to give us direction. Other ones you might say, just like we were saying, I need to think about this more. I need to, do a little bit of legwork on this. And then maybe you come back at the next meeting and address it. There is legwork that you're going to have to do. This is not a simple process. But once the template is ready, then you're going to review it, and that's where the approval process takes place. So this is the work session to get the documents ready to present for approval. Okay. So the 18th would be that first meeting. Okay.
All right. That moves us to item C, the 2022 MASB call for delegates. This is, you have to designate by Friday, September 23rd, the delegate who will attend and vote at the MASB conference, as well as selecting an alternate. Last few years, Mr. Saul was the delegate, I was the alternate. Last year, I ended up attending in his place. So I don't know if anyone has I'm happy to attend again. If anyone else is not interested in attending, so I'll be happy to do it if that's what you guys want to do. But we'll still need somebody to select as a alternate delegate for purposes of the submission by the 23rd of September. So, any questions? All right. That moves us to the closed session portion of our agenda. And
make the motion to go into closed session for the purpose of discussion, negotiation, strategies regarding BE and Masb, as much as the administration has requested such an.
all right, we have a motion by Mr. Stahl. Support by Dr. Krebs. Any discussion? Ms. Ackermike, we have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Conley?
Here.
Mr. Trombley?
Yep.
Mrs. Mitchell? Yes. Dr. Krebs? Yes. Mr. Stahl?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes, that passes 6-0. And so we will be going into a closed session at this point. We do have an action item on our agenda after the conclusion of our closed session, so we will be coming back out into open session.
We were going to recommend that we go to room 131. Then we could leave the camera on, and then they could see the vote at the end. Does that sound good?
Everyone's welcome to stay here while we retire to closed session.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Shame. I'm gonna guess, I don't know when they picked it up, but they've had it for some time before I got it. Down, see where we are, but downstairs. Oh, yeah, for sure.
didn't think about that. I got you. Yep. Totally got you. Hold on one second. Wait, just take care of it.
Kim, did you see my email to you?
Yes, I did.
Can we work on that real quick?
Are you going down there or stand up here?
No, we'll go, no, I'm not going to the closed session.
see that red. Yeah, where's our chair?
Do what?
Yeah. All right. All right, we are back in open session after the conclusion of our closed session. The next item on our agenda is action item C, Brighton Education Support Personnel Association tentative agreement. Do we have a motion to approve the tentative agreement reached with the Masb group for the 2022 to 2025 school year?
So.
Support. Moved by Mr. Stahl, supported by Mr. Conley. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any nays? That passes 6-0. And that concludes all items on our agenda for this evening. Our next regular meeting is Monday, September 12th at 7 p.m. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, guys. Good to see everybody.
See you, Ron. Thanks, Ron.
Keep you posted.
Always a pleasure.